Very good afternoon. Myself Dr. Ruchi Gupta. Today we will discuss software requirement specification. As I have already discussed in the previous lecture that there are number of methods or models are available through which we can develop any software. So, as we have discussed that there is a process, there is a systematic approach for the development of software that is called SDLC. So, now today we'll discuss that what is the first phase of SDLC, that is software requirement and specification, and how we can prepare the SRS, that is the outcome of this first phase of SDLC, that is the analysis phase. So, what is the concept of SRS? So, to introduce the concept of user and system requirement, so first of all we have to gather the requirement from the user. The requirement, it may be functional or non-functional requirement, and after that we have to explain that how the software requirements may be organized into a required document, and that document is called software requirement specification. So, first of all, we have to know what is requirement. So, the requirements are the description of features and the functionality of the target system. So, basically, before starting the project, first of all, we have to take the requirement from the user. The requirement may be functional or non-functional, and basically the requirements, it may convey the expectation of the user, that what the user want, what is actually he want in the final outcome, and so from the software product. So, the requirements can be obvious, they may be hidden, known or unknown, expected or unexpected from the client's point of view. So, the requirement may be, it may be any one of them, and it may be hidden, it may be some visible requirement, it may be expected or unexpected requirement. So, we have to collect all the data from the client's perspective, from the client's point of view. So, basically requirements always defines what, it never defines how, and after collecting the requirement from the client and other stakeholders of the company, we have prepare, analyzer will prepare a document, that is a legal document between customer and developer, and this document is to be prepared in a natural language that contain a description about what the system will do, without describing that how it will done. So, it is a very crucial phase of SDLC, or we can say it is very complex phase of SDLC. If the requirement is missing in at the very initial phase, so the software will be implemented with some missing requirements, and when we go on to the maintenance phase, then we can analyze that some requirements are missing. So, at that time it is very difficult to modify these requirements. So, that's why it is very critical phase, and the whole quality of the software or the whole quality of the product, it depends upon the requirement, that because all process has been done as per the quality of the product, and quality is depend upon the requirement of the software. So, without well written document, the developers do not know what to build. So, why we have to prepare this document? Because without this document, we don't know what the system will do. Customer don't know what is their expectation and how we can validate the requirement. So, what to validate? So, these are some specification which is to be involved in the SRS. Now, if we are talking about the requirements, so there are two type of requirement. One is functional, second one is a non-functional requirement. So, as we have seen that as per the name, functional and non-functional, it means a functional, it may define some functional requirement, it shows some functionality of the system. But if we are talking about the non-functional requirements, they are basically define some non-functional requirement, means the performance requirements like the efficiency, reliability, security, these are some non-functional requirements. So, functional requirements, it describes that what the software has to do. So, it basically these functional requirements are defined that what the system will perform, or what will be the functionality of the system, and how many features will be included in the software. So, they are often called product features. And functional requirements, it may be high level statement of what the system should do, and the functional requirements describe the system services in very detail. So, if we are talking about the non-functional requirements, so such type of requirements, it doesn't define any functionality or feature of the software, but still they are exist in the software, because without these requirement, without these fulfill all these requirements, we never say that software is an efficient software. So, these are also required. So, non-functional requirements are mostly a quality requirements that stipulate how the software system does and what it has to do. So, these are basically, if we have to consider as per the user point of view or as per the developer point of view. So, these are the requirements as per the developer point of view, like availability, reliability, usability and flexibility. Similarly, as per the developer's point of view, it may be a maintainability, portability and testability. Means availability means the system should be available at any of the time as per the user requirement. It should be reliable. It should be usable, means it contains all the functions and features as per the customer expectation, and it should be a flexible in nature. Means as per the customer requirements, the software should be modified. And if we have seen as per the developer requirement, so it should be maintainable, means we can easily modify the software in the maintenance phase. Portability is also one of the requirement of non-functional requirement, because suppose if there is some technology is being changed as per the time scenario, so we can easily port the software from one environment to another environment. And third one is the testability, means if we have to develop an efficient software and is in an easy manner, so it is easy to trace and we can test our software easily. So, these are some requirements are to be considered as per the developer's point of view, and these requirements are to be considered as per the user's point of view. Now, what is user requirement? User requirements are written for the user. The requirements which are to be given to the users as per their problem statement. So, they include functional and non-functional both. Systems in statements in a natural language plus diagrams, the services that system provide and its operational constant written for the customer. So, basically these requirements are to be considered as per the customer expectation. Now, the second is the system requirement. So, system requirements, they are derived, they are come from the user requirements, means first of all the user will give the requirement, and these system requirements will come from the user requirements. So, user requirements are the part of software requirement specification documents, which we have discussed when we will discuss the features of SRS. Now, structure document, that is setting out detailed description of systems, functions, services, operationals, and it define that what should be implemented. So, maybe a part of contract between the client and contractor. We may say that software requirement specification, it is a legal agreement between the client and the developer. Now, the question is arise at how we can prepare this SRS. So, there is a process for the implementation, for the preparation of SRS, and that process is called a requirement engineering process. So, requirement engineering is, it is a disciplined application, proven principles, method, tools, notations that describe the proposed system intended behavior and its associated constraints. So basically this process is used for finding out, analyzing the document and checking the services constraint in the system, that is called requirement engineering. So basically requirement engineering is the process for finding out the analyzing, find out the various problems, applying the various tools, methods and notations that describe the proposed system. And requirement engineering, once we have to complete the requirement engineering process, then we have to deliver one document, and that document is called SRS, and it is to be written in the natural language. So this is produce a large document written in a natural language that contains the description of what the system will do without how it will do. So we never define the internal working of the system in the SRS. We never include the technical jargon details in the SRS. Only we have to define that what the system will do after implementation. Now, this is also very important part that SRS is a legal document or it is a contract between the customer and developer, because once the requirement is to be given by the customer, it is to be verified, it is to be scrutinized by the customer, and the developer will prepare this document on the basis of the requirement of the customer. Then this document is to be given to the customer, and when customer will satisfy as per their requirement, only then customer will sign this document, and developer is also sign that documents, because if both parties will does not sign that document, so we never assure that after some time if any of the party will claim, then there will be a problem. So that we have to sign this legal document at the very initial phase. So after that no one can deny that for the implementation of software. That's why we have to say that it is a legal document or it is a contract between the customer and the developer. Now, why there is a need for the SRS? So the SRS, it established the basic of agreement. As I have already discussed, it is a legal agreement between the client and the supplier, or the client and the developer, on what the software product will do. It provide a reference for the validation for the final product. So with this SRS, we can validate that final product. A high quality SRS, it always deliver a high quality software. So we can assure that if we have to prepare a high quality SRS, then we can say that we always delivered a high quality software, because it meets all the requirement which is already given in the SRS. A high quality SRS, it always reduce the development cost, because in the SRS, when we have to mention all the requirements very clearly, if all the requirements are very correct, or if the requirements are not missing, then we can say that the final software may be an efficient software, and the development cost and the maintenance cost, it will automatically reduce. So the requirement engineering process are required for preparing the SRS document. So we have to follow this requirement engineering process for the preparation of SRS, or we can say the outcome of this requirement engineering is the SRS. So the SRS is the output of the requirement engineering, and the input for the requirement engineering is the feasibility or the problem statement. So input to the requirement engineering is the problem statement, which is prepared by the customer, and the output is prepared by the developer. Means we can say that input is to be given by the customer side and output is to be prepared by the developer side. And input is in the form of problem statement and output is in the form of SRS. So, the requirement engineering are the description of system services and constraint that are generated during the requirement engineering process. Now, requirements are very difficult to uncover. This is a very big questions about the requirements, that it is very difficult to uncover requirements because requirements are changed time to time. Overall reliance on the case tools. There is a tight project schedule. There is some communication barrier, and we have to deliver a market driven software, and there may be a lack of resources. So, these are some points through which it is difficult to uncover. Now, what is the requirement engineering process? The process used for the requirement engineering vary it widely depending on the application domain and the pupils involved in the organizational developing the requirement. So, there are number of generic activities follow in this complete RE engineering process. One is a requirement elicitation, requirement analysis, requirement documentation, and requirement review. So, this is a complete view about the requirement engineering process. So, this is our requirement engineering. This is your input domain. Problem statement is the input domain for the requirement engineering process, and it is to be given, it is the input which is given by the customer, and this is output which is to be prepared by the developer, and this is a complete process. These are the various steps of requirement engineering: requirement elicitation, requirement analysis, requirement documentation, and requirement review. So, what is a requirement? First of all, what is a problem statement for the requirement engineering process? This is the input part or the feasibility study. So, feasibility study, it involves the analysis of the problem and collection of the relevant data or information related to product. So, before starting the project, before the implementation of project, first of all, we have to identify that is it feasible to develop a software. If there is already software is available or exists in the environment, so is it feasible to develop a new software? So, first of all, we have to check the feasibility study about the project, about the existing project. So, the main aim of feasibility study is to determine whether it would be financially or technically feasible to develop any project. And the collected data items analyzed to arrive the following: abstract problem definition, formulation of the different solution strategies, and analysis of alternate strategies to compare their benefits and shortcomings. So, as I have already told you that feasibility study, it is the process of, it is evaluation or analysis of the potential impact of proposed project or program. So, what is the focus of feasibility study? First of all, we have to check that is the product, is concept is viable? Will it be possible to develop the product that matches the project vision statement? And what are the current estimated cost and schedule about the project? So, these are the 5 common factors for the feasibility study, that is TELOS. So, it means technical feasibility, economical feasibility study, operational feasibility study, legal feasibility study, and schedule feasibility. So, we have to check all these factors before the implementation of any project. So, first is the technical feasibility study. In this feasibility study, we have to check about that is it technically feasible to implement a new software when we have already used some existing software. In economic feasibility study, we have checked that is it economically feasible to involve the cost for the new project. Is it feasible? It is, the assumptions are realistic about the project. Legal feasibility study, Means in this we have to check some rules and standards which are provided by the organizations, government as well as private organizations, that is it feasible or not, legally it is feasible or not. In operational feasibility, does the business model also already realistic or not? And in scheduled feasibility study, we have to check that the project schedule assumptions are realistic or not. So, we have to check all these feasibility before going to the actual project implementation. Now, what is requirement elicitation process? This is the first step of your requirement engineering. So, requirement elicitation is basically a process of gathering the information from the customer as well as from the various stakeholders of the company. So, it is known as requirement gathering or or we can say it is a requirement recovery process. It is a requirement discovery process. So, here requirements are identified with the help of customer and existing system process if they are available. Sometimes these requirements elicitation are called requirement discovery, and it is known as the gathering of requirements because requirements are to be identified with the help of customer and with some existing process which are already available. So, we have to gather the information about the existing software, and also we have to gather the information about the new proposed system. Requirement elicitation is very difficult. It is a critical and most error prone phase of SDLC. This is very important, that it is very error prone or it is very difficult phase of SDLC, because if error is occur in this phase, so that error will propagate till the end, and you have to develop the incorrect or inefficient project if we have collect the incorrect requirement from the customer or other stakeholders. So, that's why it is very critical phase. It involves technical staffs working with customer to find out about the application domain, services domain and various other operational constraint, and many users like managers, engineers, customers, they are directly or indirectly involved in the development of that software. Now, it is very difficult, error prone and most communication intensive phase of SDLC. It is only the method that we have to know. Normally, we rely on two reasons, and there are various methods of this requirement elicitation phase, which we have discussed in detail. So, these are the various phases of requirement elicitation. One is interview session, second is the brainstorming session, third is the FAST method, and fourth one is the QFD method, and last one is the use case diagram method. So, in the interview session, what is interview? So, after receiving the problem statement from the user or from the customer, the first step to arrange the meeting with the customer, because we have to collect the requirement from the customer. So, it is a one-to-way communication. One party will arise the questions and another party will give the answers about the problem. So, it defines that all the users are stakeholders who may influence or may impacted by the system. This help ensure that needs of all the involved are taken into account. So, during the meeting or interview, both the parties would like to understand with each other. Now, the objective of conducting this interview session is to understand the customer expectation, that what the customer want from the software. There are basically two type of interview which held. First is a closed interview, second is a open interviews. So, in the closed interview, the requirements engineers looks for the answer to a predefined set of questions. So, they have already prepared some set of questions, and they have just asked about these answers of these questions. These are very systematic and goal directed questions. And second one is a open interview. This is a no predefined agenda and requirement discussion. It is open ended discussion. What stakeholders want from the system? We have collect all the requirements as per the customer expectation through open ended interview. So it may be open ended or structured interview. And what are the selection of the stakeholders? The how many stakeholders are involved in the interview session? They may be entry level personals, they may be middle level persons, or managers or user of the software, means client or customer. Most important. So what type of questions may arise? For example, if we are taking an example of result management system, any problem with some existing system, any calculation error, possible reasons for malfunctioning, and number of student enrolled. So some questions has been arise at the time of interview session. So these are the various questions about that. In the next lecture, we have discussed about other methodologies of requirement elicitation method. Thank you very much.